top as regards Home Rovers, as regards the chairman and the president. In the last month, Paul Harrison has resigned, and so has Mike. But in the place, Mike stepped up the ladder, and he's now the president. So he takes all the glory, and I'm the chairman, and I do all the work. so that's the first point. So as chairman, the first thing I'd like to do is just to thank the parish council for donating £300 towards the under 11 goals. It's much appreciated. Any money as regards to the club is a great help. Okay, so thanks very much. As regards to the club, it's growing fast. A year ago we had one junior team. Currently we have 3. And in January, we're going to start a 4th team. We're going to have an under-8s. Because the club's growing so quickly, I'm actually trying to do a structured approach to all the problems. So it's that big now. I don't know if I can't train. We have 20 committee members. That's how big we are now. Currently, I'm saying we're growing all the time. Going back to the night when I was presented with a cheque from yourselves, Steve Young approached me and said, would I like any help, or the club would like any help? Well, when somebody says that, you get them bad handling. You grab them away. So I said to Steve, because of the size of the club and how quickly we're growing, we're going to have to use more of the land for football pitches. If you'd just like to hand that around, have a look at it. We've got massive issues as regards the far end of the pitches where the flood. So I said to Steve, we're looking at, raising money ourselves, getting grants. So Steve kindly offered to actually meet up with me and some of the team within the week. And we've got a granting process as regards help to try to reclaim some of this land. So again, thanks to Steve. Currently, Steve's just giving me a grant, filled out to the best of his knowledge. I'm currently waiting for a quote from Lodge Lawns. The quoted 2 years ago, £7,000. So imagine 2 years, it'll have gone up in value, but like I said, I'm still waiting for a quote. Internally, we're holding our own fundraising events by bingo, race nights and things like this. So we're doing our best to help ourselves as well. As regards myself as chairman, I've told Bethany that I will attend the Village Hall Committee meeting monthly. Apparently this has slipped over the last few months, but I will promise you I will attend every month, and the club and myself will help in any way as regards the Village Hall Committee, and if it links into the Parish Council, then so be it. I see my biggest role is to try to put together a 5-year plan, because if we're going to grow, again, it's got to be structured as in money. So I'm putting a 5-year plan together to see what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and from that, money. So I'll have to work out, what grants we can aim to go for and how we're going to get them, and also, again, how we're going to actually help raise money within the village and within the club. So that is my aim, because I see myself, I give myself 3 years into this job. I want to give it a really good effort, and 3 years I'm gone. So hopefully in 3 years' time, the club will be growing and it will be on a real good firm footing. So that's it briefly. Again, I'm being cheeky here. I mean, you helped us with the under 11 goals this year. I was saying we started under 8s in January, and I've had a quote of £132 for some new goals. And I just wondered if the Parish Council would be interested in helping us towards the goals. So I could leave a quote. You can make it into paper airplane or whatever you like. But I've got a quote there if you're happy to help towards that cost. But I say everything is much appreciated. I say we are going to start a 5th team in September 2015, and one of the biggest problems you can appreciate is people coming forward to say, yeah, I'll manage or I'll help. On Saturday, I had this parent come up to me and he says, Richard, I understand you want to start a team a year in September. I want to be a manager. What do I need to do? I says, we'll put you through your coaching badge, everything the lot. So at this moment in time, we've got things all underway to have 5 junior teams starting in September 2015. And my long-term goal is is to have a junior age group for every age group, from under 16s to under 7s. There's players coming from far away from Sancton, Newballs, Chippenthorpe, because we're all qualified coaches, we're a child standard club, we're doing things in a really good professional manner, and that's my goal, to move things forward. And thanks for your time. Thank you.
Could I say two things, would you mind, that are relevant? Firstly, we're also looking at getting the club accredited with the East Riding Voluntary Association, which will open up grants next year from the East Riding. And the other thing is the village board has written a letter of support to the Awards for All grant application that's going in. And I wonder if the parish council would do the same, because it carries weight, obviously, with the... Are people happy for me to put that?
Everyone happy with that one? Yeah. And I'm sure, will we have a word with Mike? Or will we just...
We can talk to him,
But, will this team be okay for kit?
For kit? Yeah, we've got sponsorship already. Yeah. It's just some girls we need to purchase. Okay. Yeah, on that front, a lot of companies are sponsors in great ways as regards kits, racing nights, team yourself, and what have you. Everything helps. It's absolutely brilliant in the village. It's all pulling together. So sorry, can I just say something else? I want to say, people know that some nets got damaged a while ago, and the young man has owned up. He's wrote a letter to my county, and his parents have offered to pay.
He's offered to pay.
Well, he's offered to pay. So it is a risk leaving nets up. It's a lot of hassle taking them down, but also we believe we're giving something back to the village, where you see a lot of kids now on a nighttime weekend playing football in the girls. We've no problems with that at all. We're here to share our resources as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just something. I know that there's private grant money available as well. There are, and I can't remember. There's a solicitor's firm, and they do a lot with young people. It's at the what's it called?
Neil Hudgelson's Trust.
Yeah, and they do a lot of grants for young people and things like that. So there is a lot out there for organisations like yourselves.
So if Emily could just feed that through Steve or through Bethany.
Yeah, well, Bethany's got it, because she was at the meeting that I was at. So there are a few different things. And to be honest, I'm happy to actually get one, as soon as you get accredited with the East Riding, we can link with the East Riding, and that opens you up a whole load of options. Yeah. I've got a card here.
I don't know who you are.
I'm Victoria, I'm the ward councillor.
Okay, right, that's actually great.
So by all means, yeah, it's a good news story. So.
I do recognise you now, sorry.
We could also, there's a thing called Volunteer, which is out there, which is a way of rewarding young people for the voluntary hours that they do. So if there were any older young people who wanted to help out as I don't know, coaches or whatever, there's a way that you can get accreditation, and they then get certificates and things for their hours so that they don't just get out of it putting the hours in and the rewards that brings, but also a recognition and national recognition. And volunteers being pushed quite heavily by Airbus at the moment.
That's right.
And that might be quite a good way of getting support from young people. I think it's from high school age people, so that might be worth looking at whether we can get a volunteer group set up.
There's also the Viper.
Yeah,
which is the young people's voluntary something, whatever it is. But they're all. There's a lot out there. What you need is to just get filtered into the right direction so that we can help you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Right. Yesterday I was approached by people from the community first responder team who approached me actually as chair of the village hall. They've written us a letter which I'll read to you because it's pertinent information. So it's addressed to the Village Hall Committee. As you're all hopefully aware, in 2013, 2 schoolgirls from Home Boldingmore Primary School raised over £1,000 to purchase a life-saving AED machine for our village. The local ambulance service was so amazed by their efforts that they agreed to help set up a first response team and donated further £1,000 worth of equipment. In June 2014, 8 members of the community volunteered to join the community first response team, and after extensive training we were up and running. We are all volunteers who work with the ambulance service. We volunteer to go on call day and night and attend 999 calls to give life-saving treatment before the ambulance arrives. To date, we've been on call over 2,000 hours and attended many call-outs, making a massive difference to our village. Using our own money, we all paid to hire a hall to carry out our initial training, but can't expect others to do the same. We're busy fundraising to try and raise enough money to train the next group of people, but wondered if there was anything the Village Hall Committee could do to help support us to keep this project going. We require a hall for 2 full days for the initial training and then half a day every 6 months for our refresher training. Now, having discussed this and thought about it, I've not brought this to the Village Hall Committee because we haven't had a meeting, obviously, since this came in yesterday. But I think that this is something the Village Hall should be supporting. It's not like it's benefiting anybody except for the community. This isn't a fun thing that they're going to be doing. This is entirely and purely for community benefit. So we've got the hall free on the time that they want. There's no other bookings. We wouldn't have to cancel anything. So the Village Hall aren't losing any money. So what I'm proposing is that the Village Hall charge £50 for the weekend, which would cover the lighting and heating that we need. It's going to be the first weekend in November. And so I've had a word with Claire Adrian, who's the scheme organiser, and I said I would bring it to the parish council because I don't think this is money that should be coming out of the volunteers' pockets. This is a community resource. I mean, you know, they're literally saving people's lives and helping to alongside the ambulance service. There's nothing more community, and I wondered whether the parish council could work with the Village Hall, and if the parish council could pay for the lighting and heating, we would donate the premises and make sure it was open and closed at the right times and things, so that the community first response can have more people on call and spread their workload. So I don't know whether I'm asking or they're asking, but I wondered if we could work together as a community project.
Okay. How was that whole thing?
It's a good idea.
I think it's brilliant.
Very good idea.
Well, are we all in favour then? And this has been brought up in public session because the letter came yesterday. Obviously, couldn't get on tonight's agenda, and by the time next month's agenda is out, it'll be too late.
Yeah.
So,
how much are we?
£50.
Which seems...
I don't think we can go. No. So, everyone in favour of the parish council? Yeah.
In theory, if we're going to be pedantic, you can't make that decision tonight, but you can make the decision in principle and confirm it at the next meeting.
Right.
In principle, we made that decision.
Right.
Right. Victoria, you want
One of the issues that I get across the whole of the ward is grass cutting and birch maintenance and things like that. I've been doing a bit of digging up at County Hall, and I can't remember the guy's name. What's the portfolio on Steve? Oh,
Chris Matthews.
Matthews. Spoke to him today, and it appears that we're going to have yet another rejig of operations on grass cutting. So I'm actually trying to get him to meet up with Nigel Layton, and he is. I'm hearing already before I've even met him that he is open to discussion on some of the issues. So I think what that's basically telling me is that they are aware that things haven't been as they should have been, and if I can manage to twist arms right up at the top, then hopefully I'll get a better idea, so that we all get a better idea of when grass cutting will be due next season. Obviously, we can't do anything about this past year, but to actually try and get a sight of the schedules and understand how they actually schedule in each parish. So it's something that's been brought up briefly here, but it's been brought up a lot at other parishes as well. So that's sort of across the spectrum. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head at the moment. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just say two very quick things? When Peter Wanwiles retired, the parish council gave him a present of a meal at each of the two coffee shops, and the one on the green, we owe them £6.90, but they want us to donate that to the In Bloom. So I'll move it from the normal budget into the In Bloom budget, just so you're aware. A very kind gesture. And something that thought of tonight, Ernest, maybe, is that with Doreen not being on the parochial charity, that she'll need replacing?
You will be getting a letter.
I will, that's fine.
You will be getting a letter at the
Okay.
next meeting.
I'd forgotten about that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right, well, welcome to the October Parish Council meeting. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Louise, Anthea and Ian. And that's everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep.
Right, minutes of the council meeting on 17th of September. Any matters arising from those minutes? Well, can we sign them off then as true and accurate? Okay, is everyone okay with that? Not at all. Moment.
It's quite important. It's not a license to walk as
That's great.
Warren,
Moment. Yes.
fingers very tightly crossed. And it's not official yet. I think he's trying to get to take something else.
Thank you very much.
I was hoping to have that information for last Friday. I spoke to Paul again today, and he's hoping to have it the next Friday. But it's up with his recommendation, and it's at the director level.
Thank you.
That's a lot more exciting than you've made it sound. That's something I've been chasing for 2 years and got nowhere.
Well, it's sometimes like finding a brick wall, but
Yeah.
occasionally those really lots of that to give.
Okay, lovely. Has anyone any declarations of interest in any items on the agenda tonight? Village Hall. Well,
I just do a blanket village hall, those that are involved.
okay. Right. And we will move on to matters arising. Parish Council vacancy.
The election, as you all know, is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And it's the 2 people standing have been made aware.
Okay.
Can I just say something, Chairman? I'd like to just say that having read Sharon Smith's election statement as Vice Chairman of this Parish Council, I am quite concerned about her inferring that this Parish Council is not transparent enough. And we would like very much to be informed from Sharon Smith as to how she thinks we aren't transparent enough. At any time, not necessarily now.
Okay. Would you like to answer now, Sharon?
I'll do it in writing if that's all right, thank
Okay.
you.
Moving on then, the Child Protection Officer meeting.
Again, as you all know, that's booked for 7 o'clock on the 29th of October here.
Parish Council website update.
Yeah, I had an email from the person who's managing the website to say he's busy doing a huge update at the moment, and would we mind if we waited a little bit. It's going to be a couple of weeks. He said that that's probably a couple of weeks ago now, and I didn't see any point in saying no, we want it now because we can't do it. So I just sent back a nice mail saying thank you very much for letting us know. Yes, we're fine to wait.
Okay. Winter funds
Nothing to report on that at all.
and the adoption of them. We'll go there.
Chairman, can I just tell you that the 3 pending turbines are up. They're not running yet, but in a year's time, from probably December, there will be community funds coming in
Okay, thank
from
you.
those 3.
Yeah. So there's no other news about Snowdrop and the Rowing, that's just ongoing.
Sorry, that's more I could give you a little bit more on that.
Please?
The Rowans, the only thing that's outstanding on the Rowans is the water, the Yorkshire Waters bit, and emails, communication is ongoing at the moment between Paul Earledge and the Yorkshire Water. I'm putting Paul under a lot of pressure, and to be fair, it's the same with Stone as well. I think that all that's outstanding on that is the auction water bit. We think, because I've had several meetings with Paul over the last few weeks, and he thinks that he may have found a bit of a loophole that he can put more pressure on the auction water for, and that is that there's some legislation changed in 2011, and apparently he's trying to actually hook these developments into pre-2011, in which case he thinks that we may be in a position where there's no option and we've got to say yes, it's ours and hold our hands up. And the minute they do that, then I think we're in for adoption of those two as well. But it's something that I'm putting a lot of pressure on at the moment.
Thank you. Something to report.
Nothing to report again. Still waiting for Mrs. Rockleford to get back with an alternative date.
Anyone issues?
I don't have anything to say. We need to organise a lease for the new depot, which I think we plan to do that together, don't we?
We do indeed. Great, man.
Again, Emily's here. If anybody wants to ask anything or congratulate on a wonderful edition of Grapevine, despite the mistake that I pointed out to her this evening.
Can I just say something? I was a bit disappointed as to how it had been explained while we haven't got a council wall no longer there. I didn't think that was very appropriate to put imprisonment in the magazine.
Right.
That's all. But it was good. It was a good addition. Well done, Emily.
Grass cutting in the village and Gallimore roundabout.
Grass cutting's been covered, I think.
And Gallimore roundabout, I think the fire has done an absolutely wonderful job in hounding that take about.
No, just part of the job. So.
How did you get rid of the rabbits?
The rabbits? Were they parish council rabbits?
It's certainly cost a lot of money, because every time I've been round, there's been half a dozen of them stood on the they haven't been doing much work, but something got done sometimes.
Yeah, there's
While I was passing
I agree.
Shall I write to Mr. Layton, who we found the trigger with Mr. Layton, and say thank you?
Yes, please. That would be good.
Can we take some photos while it's brilliant so we can go back and say, this is what it should look like?
Right, Cherry Drive, the grass area known as Backfield. I don't think there's any movement there till we find out what actually.
Did you manage to?
I went down, but there's no visible signs there. Unfortunately, I had times against me. I couldn't go knocking. But is that something that we now need to move on from? If we can't establish who the owner is,
We can't do anything.
can't really do anything.
No.
Do we drop that from the?
It's as was discussed at the last meeting. I'm making the assumption we won't find the owner because that I think is the case, and the parish council would need to make a decision to take a risk. But the problem might be that if you go forward to get grants, most grant bodies ask if you've got a ownership or a lease.
I think we'll
Shelve it.
yes, I think we should probably shelve it for a few months.
Sorry, Jen, where else can we look to find out? I mean, we've exhausted all
We have.
avenues.
Yeah. Well, we could just try the address.
Yeah, I'll try again. There's no visible signs. You know, it doesn't say.
We often go through that way shopping, so if I could take the address and not on the note, probably a little bit more time.
The good contact on that one is Anthea, isn't she? Because she's in touch with them over this piece of land at the back of the chapel. It's theirs, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
So she might be able to.
Yeah, I'll check
She
that.
progresses with hers.
Yeah. Public rights of way.
the public rights of way, that's really been taken up by Heritage Society. So we've actually
now had an audit of the footpath network done. It's been done. And the Poppington Ramblers group have done it. And it's quite a comprehensive roundup of missing signs or whatever. And this is the basis of it's a document to work on really, because it was felt, we discussed, a few discussions, the Heritage Working Group had some discussions saying about how we can improve little areas where there's shortfall in signage, for example. Perhaps we can improve a couple of little issues here and there. So we're going to have, so that the audit's been done of the paths as they stand now. We now can see where existing signs have disappeared or are broken, but the point is suggestions for further signage will be something that we are going to consider. And we've actually got a working plan now of what we're going to do with the heritage side of things with the rights of way. So we're going to make recommendations for improvements of connectivity and signage. Research work on the Market Link Canal to assist the Market Link Canal Improvement Project is ongoing. And there's lots of support for that on the Heritage Open Day. So we've got a couple of new members on the Heritage Informal Working Group who are very keen and quite knowledgeable. And we are looking to have some discussions next week together to see where we go. But we're quite enthusiastic and quite hopeful that there are good things that we can do. The research is also involving the common land down there. And it also involves links with the Pilgrimage of Grace project. And I've forgotten his name now. Tony Corrigan. He has extensive knowledge of our footpath network, and he's also working with John Brown on the Pilgrimage of Grace project. So we're going to bring Market and Town Council in to see the feasibility of making little links into the Holmes Bollingmore network, which attach to the Pilgrimage of Grace network. So it can go all the way from Shippenthorpe back down to Alton. And I think that should be an excellent thing for Holmes Bollingmore, because Holmes Bollingmore will be mentioned in the Poppington Pilgrimage of Grace advertisements. So people who would come here who would maybe not normally have come here. The rail trail, the connectivity of the rail trail is also another one which we're looking at, and the connections through at Shipton Lane through to Gallymore and then behind through to Stray Farm. And we believe there are some improvements that could be made there. I'm sorry to take a bit of time, but there's quite a lot in this that's happened this last couple of weeks. So the rail trail connectivity at Shipton Lane through to Gallymore may require a verge walk or an improvement of the verge, so that the connection, if you're going to walk back down on the verge to get back through, and that really does want improving because it's not very safe down there. So I had a meeting with Rod Stanley of the Local Access Forum Verges. She's the chair of the Verges subcommittee. And you've all seen Steve sent a thing around about the Verges. She actually came to me. She thought Holmes Bollingmore was an interesting topic, so she rang me, can I come down? She sort of came the next day. And we had a look at our Verges. And I think she would like to come again because there's a hell of a lot of Verges in Holmes Bollingmore. But it's not just the footpaths, it's the verges of the lanes of the roads. And two comments that she made, and this will go on further because Ross is looking to she probably even come and address the parish council if necessary, or at least the Heritage Working Party. And the suggestions are that in two places. You know, well, first of all, we've got a lot of great verges out at Drain Lane and Iron Lane, all around there, fantastic verges that are not particularly cut. They host a lot of native species, a wonderful place for wildlife, and also for refuge of walkers. It's important that walkers can get off the road if cars come along. But the connectivity is an interesting one for Weirs Pond and Shipton Lane to Gallingwall, both areas which are difficult pieces of road. And Ross is very keen to see that we use the verge if we can. So she suggested we should have a good hard look. We went down and had a look at this. From Stockshill through to Weirs Pond, if it was trimmed back and it was cut back to the verge boundary, that would be the hedge line, there's enough room to get a safe pattern. So you could walk from Stockshill to the entrance of the Weirs Pond without crossing the road. Now this is an interesting one, and it's one we need to look at to see if it is feasible and if it would be acceptable to the parish council. The other one is to do the same type of improvement. You would still have to cross the road at Shipton Lane, but if a verge path was made, it would then be obvious to the walker. So the walker would walk down the verge path and get well off the road instead of trying to walk on the road. So we think some of these issues that I've just been outlining are very important issues, and that there are things that we can work on in the Heritage Project under footpaths. So I was very, very pleased with the meeting I had with Ross, and I think we should give it some serious consideration. The bit at Stockshill, it's quite interesting because if you drive past, you think there's no space, but in fact, if you have a look and you get right back to the hedge line, there's more space than you think, and you can enter Weirs Pond closer to Stockshill, this side of the Holmes Moor side. Because if you were going to walk along, you'd have to climb the Holmes Moor side, but you can actually enter if we put a new gate in before you get to the Holmes Moor side. So it is feasible. So I think this area of work is a thing that we can spend some time with, and I think it would be very, very productive. There were one or two of the little things perhaps about the footpath network. That it was suggested that we could actually give more information on certain of the existing posts that we have. We could give a little bit more information to get over this problem of some little areas of confusion. There are confusing places. Even the Ramblers who did the audit found areas of confusion, and we think that we could help with that. So I think we've got a project here which is going to take a year or two to do, but I think it'll be well worth it. So that's it, really.
Thank you, Glenn. Anyone any comments? Okay, then we'll move on to crime prevention.
I've placed some grant application, as you know, I've not heard back yet.
Okay. Christmas plans and road closure.
The road closure, I need to write to the 999 services plus buses, which I've done. I've got a copy of the insurance, sent that back to the East Riding. So I've done everything that needs to be done for the road closure, apart from the consultation. And am I right in saying Madge offered to do the consultation?
She did.
She did. I'll chat to Madge afterwards about the consultation, if I may. Thank you.
Local grant fund, sorry.
Oh, sorry, can I just check the insurance for the night? Because the fun fair is insured themselves, and the village hall will have the craft fair element. So the parish council doesn't need extra insurance really for the night.
Do you normally?
Well, I think-
it come within your public library.
I'm sure it comes within, but we don't need anything special.
Not so
No,
much.
that's fine. Thank you, sorry.
Who's organising the craft fair tables? You are. Are really spare tables?
Yeah, still, yeah, there's odd ones left.
Oh,
Could I just ask if, Chairman, could you arrange for the fire
Yeah.
service to come into the village, because the kids do look like that, so
Where would you like them to park?
anywhere, it's a good.
Well, you said where the park last year was.
outside the blacksmith, if possible.
Blacksmith.
please.
Yeah, that's usually good there, isn't it?
I will
It's
tell
worked for
them
years,
that's where we
yeah.
want them. I'll ask them to.
Yeah. Louise has spoke to me today, and she said that they'd arranged, or they thought they were going to arrange that Santa's grotto was going within the village hall. They're going to put it in the committee room. So we just need to get in there and turn something on Thursday night when badminton finishes. If there's anybody that would like to help put the table up, that would be good.
Good.
It'll be about 9 o'clock. The 5th.
No,
Friday.
Thursday.
I don't think Victoria meant
Thanks. The village hall playground.
Local grant fund.
Right, I think it's fine. The local grant fund.
There's not a great deal to comment on there. I met with Bethany and Kev Hill to look at putting in an application to improve the gents' toilets in the village hall, and we're also putting in an application to get trolleys for the new chairs so they can be stacked more easily. Also, at the next, I'm conscious at the November meeting you'll be starting discussion on the precept. So between now and then I'll send out forms to all the voluntary groups asking if they have any needs, so the parish council can start to look at that. Thank you.
The village hall playground. We all seen.
There was a bench smashed to smithereens. Do you have any information?
I haven't got down there yet. I have to say that the CCTV footage it's a monster of a thing, and I have to work myself up to do it. So I actually need my husband with me to go and look at
The last village hall meeting we had, Barry Dennis said he'd repaired it once and it's been broken again, and he said at the last village hall meeting he said he was going to take it away altogether.
Well, it's almost matchstick now. It's a real mess. I went to have a look the other day.
Well, excuse me, can I speak? So what other bench we decided to replace it with?
Well, Pete was going to try and mend it. I don't know what.
I thought we decided that when we had a look at it, it was beyond repair, it's already been repaired quite a few times, it was all fixed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not that, you know, that really it's okay to smash the stage, but
The Spanish Council hasn't resolved to buy a new one, if that's what you're asking.
no, we did discuss it though, didn't we? That
It was discussed, yeah. I went down to have a look, spent a bit of time, more than once recently, because I've had to talk to the insurance company about the equipment, so I've had to go and list everything, and also get that to, I have a contact with the playground company, and they provided the information on which we base the insurance premium increase, and looking at it, there are three elements of wooden furniture. One is the bench that's now been buried, and there are two wooden picnic tables at the back. And recycled plastic for those three would solve any future vandalism problems. At £1,300 each, I price those up just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
And if I sent you information, if the parish council decide to adopt the play area, you've got information that the insurance premium, the annual premium, if you just go for public liability, would increase by £45 a year. And if you went for public liability and material damage, it would be £393. So you've got that information. You know, I think that if we sent Peter Wiles and Steve Deere, as an example, on a course to do weekly visual inspections, that course would cost £50 each. We would need, by law or by regulation, to have an annual inspection done by an expert, and the East Riding will do that. I'm still waiting for a price on that. And then I also sent you information from the playground company called RSS, and they quote an annual contract value of £300, which will give a quarterly inspection and an annual inspection, and that's kind of the inspection by experts. So that's information that I've got for you to consider.
I think it was my understanding that the village hall agreed that we would pay for the training costs for Steve and Pete. If it did go over, we would happily pay that £50 each. You know, as a sort of thank you, well, sort of as getting things set up so that the initial cost isn't there, sort of thing.
Village vet.
Do you want to discuss? I think the idea was to discuss
All right.
whether the parish council feels they should look at adoption for the play area. Because that's what the village hall committee have asked for.
Okay. Does anyone have any feelings?
Just ask them, on the face of this, and from this RSS, is that a necessity that like a legal requirement that we need? Obviously, I understand we need one annual inspection, but do we need quarterly inspections as well? If we've trained, we wouldn't need that.
No, we just need the annual.
Just need the annual one. So that's only 150 then, is it?
Yeah.
And if we train,
I think we're currently paying £65 for the East Riding, I think.
I haven't got that price though.
right, so it's paying
It'll be a lot
something cheaper than that. So that's what gets rid of that, isn't it, really? Then that's yeah. So your other expense then, which the British Horses are going to stand, is the training. So the only expense that we would really be looking at would be any labour that we put into this, and obviously our insurance. So we've got to decide whether.
It's whether you feel, as a parish council, if you wanted to adopt the play area, whether to go for just public liability or public liability and material damage. Well, looking at the equipment, the only thing that can be really damaged are the wooden items. The other things are all metal.
So can I just ask Beth, do you insure that at the moment?
Yeah, that's
as with damage as well?
I think it's just
Just
liability. Yeah.
Well, I would propose then that the parish council take on this adoption. I think it also shows if we're having trouble with trying to determine whether people wanting this backfield one, and it shows that the parish council are also keen to have a play area for the village. So I propose that we do adopt it for the parish council, and we just keep the insurance on as just the legal requirement, if you put it like it.
Could I just say, we talk about adoption. What exactly do we mean by adoption?
Looking after it.
Taking over it. We had this meeting, didn't we? We had a meeting, quite a few of the parish council.
Yeah, I didn't do that. So we take it over, but the ground it stands on belongs to the shore.
Yeah.
And if it needed replacing because the equipment was old and needed replacing, would we replace that?
Yeah.
My understanding, the recommendation that came out of that room, if it were to happen, would be that the village hall would own the land, but the parish council would take responsibility for the equipment and maintenance of the grass and the equipment.
And so when the time comes it needs replacing, then the parish council will look to see the grant to replace it. Is that
Would the clerk just say what you said then about the land?
Well, the land would still be in the ownership of the village hall committee.
Well, the land is a charity, it belongs to charity.
Oh, sorry. However, whoever owns it now would keep the ownership, sorry. but the actual equipment and the maintenance of the grass and the fence and so on would be taken over by the parish council. That's my understanding of what you said at that meeting.
I think you mentioned the exchange for £1.
Well,
I didn't. It's whether we need to. I don't know. It's whether we need something in place so that the land does stay under the village hall charity. And I don't know whether we need a peppercorn rent or not. I'm not versed in legal matters, whether we need to...
Does it need to be legal?
Well, I don't know. As long as there's an agreement that we've all agreed to, but I just don't want either side to get stung by a gentleman's agreement that don't often get honoured. You know, we were stung by that with the car park, where the council had it for a long time and then we were giving it back after they'd used it to bits and had to do it. And I know we had a lot of help very kindly from the parish council, but what I don't want is for either side to get stung. So whether we need an agreement in place of some kind, whether that's just...
I think it's worth looking into it, and then things, if we don't, we don't, and do, at least we could.
Yeah.
But we don't want to get stung with the capital costs that we cannot afford in the future.
Well, there's nothing that says that it has to be a play area, of course.
So if it became dangerous or it needed repairs, who's going to pay for the repairs then? Because I think we've got to be very careful that we know what we're letting ourselves in for. If we have taken, I was quite surprised about the figures that came through and how much this equipment is worth or costs. So repairs are going to be expensive, aren't they? How do we fund those? And I did wonder why we are taking it on instead of the village hall committee. I mean, I'm sure they don't want us to take on any other of their responsibilities, do they?
Well, we've been on to the village hall for years, and had the play corner to sort of look after. Well, there's been very little expense of anything, because it's all, as it's been said, it's all substantial metal other than an odd seat. So we don't envisage any big spending on repairs, unless somebody's going to go mad.
Well, I think that one of the other things, Chairman, was that we obviously have some staff, the handyman and the lift picker, for which, you know, was to help them look after it and keep it neat and tidy. I know I think Peter already was putting the gas in. Yeah.
So what was the reason why the village hall committee wants us to take it on?
The village hall, for us, obviously we're volunteers, and I appreciate the parish council are all volunteers as well, but we're all volunteers, and it's knowing all of the rights and responsibilities and that sort of thing. It's having somebody who is available to go there every week and check it without fail. It's having that knowledge of what you need to be looking for. So we would happily send Steve and Pete on the course, but for one of us, for enough cover for us to do it as a committee would cost us a lot of money. We don't know really what we're looking for, and that course would teach us, but...
Well, we don't have it, do
well,
we?
no, but you have handymen and litter pickers who
Well,
would be trained.
they do cost money, and how many people on the village hall committee?
There's 7 trustees, 2 co-opted, and then people who are from representatives.
Is there a dozen?
Yeah, probably.
I think we're going to make sure we look at it. I think we should certainly help the village hall as much as we can. But I'm just unclear about why the village hall can't take this on. But it's probably because we have some money and we don't. Is that right?
No, it's not really to do with money. It's to do with responsibility and who uses it. We look after the village hall and the facilities within the village hall. The football players look after the backfield, and that's the agreement with them. They take care of all of that for us. Which leaves the play corner, which is used by the village. I mean, the village hall gets no real benefit from it. We don't let it out as a village hall with play area. It's never part of the thing. We do this, we look after it, and it's not really central to our core functioning, really.
Well, I mean, the parish council has started cutting the grass, and the handyman's a good chap for looking after it, so I thought, well, if the handyman's going to look after the grass, you can just look up with the clay material, and that would be the end of it, like. And if you go in for these here training, if he's willing to do that, well, that's a bonus, and they would, then we should be covered. We didn't envisage, any problems.
It's not we're not handing it over in bad condition, apart from this one bench which has been an ongoing. So, but it's all in good nick.
Have you been in Clay Corner garden lately?
No.
I thought not, the way you go.
So do we need to have the full adoption of it, or do we just leave it at the level where Steve and Pete do the reports, they can maintain it? If that's the issue, do we have to fully take on and adopt the playground?
The problem is,
Because if you're saying that the problem is the maintenance of it, maybe we could take over the maintenance, but we have to take on the full adoption of all the equipment and everything and the liability that goes with that.
That's entirely up to the parish council. One thing that did come out at the informal meeting that Tim mentioned was that if the parish council were responsible, then any cost for new equipment or maintenance or repair is paid for out of the precept, which is the whole village. At the moment, it's paid for by the village hall and wherever your funds come from, which is a relatively smaller percentage of the village, and that I think was.
and it's possible, I don't know, that the parish council might find it easier to get grants than the village hall. Maybe I don't know about that. That might be the other way around. But the parish council has access to grants that we don't have access to. So if, as and when new equipment's wanted.
You could say, couldn't you, because it's a village, a benefit to all the villages as opposed to not just the village hall. That would be a reason why the parish council should take it on.
Yeah.
It isn't really a benefit to the village hall.
It isn't.
So I'm just trying to get my head around why are we doing it?
It's
I suppose
really.
it's something that's been landed on your plate that
Yeah.
they've ended up having to look after. But it's not, let me say, you get nothing from it.
How the village hall came to take over the play corner because there was a children's committee, and they had looked after the play corner till the children's committee folded up. So the village hall took over the play corner, and it was the same as that. And there was none of this here, can't we afford it, or can't we, we took it on. And over the years, there hasn't been a lot of expense to it, other than maintenance, and just nothing major was being vandalised or anything. There's just this seat, this last 3 or 4 weeks, was being broken.
Well, that explains it, doesn't it, really? That puts it in perspective much more, the fact that it was taken over because the children's committee thought. Yeah.
Lack of support.
Okay.
They put all the new equipment in, didn't they? And it was like a Millennium Committee. I think Claire Rhodes had a lot to do with it, didn't she? And it's just a fabulous place. Our kids love it.
It's wonderful. All the wooden play equipment that was in there before, because it was all metal originally, wasn't there?
Yes, and they
So
took
we
it
took that out, and
put the wooden
I was
stuff
on
in.
the committee that raised all the money for the wooden play stuff, and then that obviously didn't last.
Not too
Yes,
long. And then
yeah.
all this,
And the metal stuff's back
stuff
again.
in,
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the metal stuff is a lot more hard wearing than the wooden stuff. And
It's all done to be hard wearing. I mean, we've even got that sort of stuff that the grass grows through at the gate entrances, so that you've got grass right up to the gates, rather than a muddy thing that I remember in my youth. Sort of every play area had a muddy bit you had to get around before you could get into it. We've got grass because we've got that stuff that it grows through. You can tell how much of an expert I am on play equipment, can't you?
So it just needs maintaining by painting, does it usually?
I don't think we even paint it, to be perfectly honest. It's quite colourful, yeah. But I think
So
it's
it's
just is.
Right, Mr. Chairman, are we going to take it on or not?
Is anyone all right to propose that we take on the...
Right,
Tim has proposed that the
Take it
parish
on.
council adopt it and insure by just public liability.
If that's what the village hall are doing now.
I'll say
Right.
that.
Okay. It's been proposed and seconded. All in favour?
Am I allowed to vote?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
possible.
That's fine.
5, 6, 7, that's unanimous, isn't it?
Is there anyone against?
Can I suggest that we get our heads together and we make a formal date when everything's in place?
I think it should go in group.
Village bench.
I sent that out to you, I think. I've basically said to them that in principle the parish council would be interested, but we need more information. But it looks interesting, I think. I know Bethany was keen to look at it.
I heard about this from the other side, from the village hall side of things. The hall's a member of a group of halls, and we heard about it through that, and it seems to work very well as a project. And again, it brings, sort of all sorts of healthy, lovely community things in as a focus.
Do we have an idea where we might put this in?
Well, probably in the village hall, I would have thought, if we can do it during the day. We've got no evenings available, but we could do it during the day, which is, and it's sort of training and delivery of compost and swapping of veg and things like that.
So I'll ask for more information and I'll pass it on when you do it. It obviously won't happen until next year.
Okay, yes, yeah. HOIC Parish Council event on the 9th of October. We go, definitely.
Yes, I attended. It was very useful, I think. So I've got all sorts of bits, some of which is sort of just for me to do take on for the website, but some things, emergency planning. We're one of the councils that has a big green lodge saying we've done it, we're brilliant. So that's useful to know that what they're asking for at the moment is just if some councils could even just give them a phone number to ring in an emergency. But there were some bits, the emergency planning, it's not just for, the emergency planning team don't just look at parish councils and their emergency planning, they also look at people, individuals and families' emergency planning. And they have some leaflets available called Life is Not Always Predictable. 200 are available from our parish. I don't know whether we've had ours. But essentially it's on what would you do as a person if your house burned down or was flooded or whatever. Have you thought about what you might do? And it's more particularly for vulnerable people rather than, sort of your standard people. It's things like, having a bag pre-packed if you're worried or whatever. So we could get some leaflets. There's also, I can put a link to the website. Well, we've got our website up and running. If people are happy, I would link to theirs for emergency planning. We could put some adverts in the grapevine. They've got some nice sort of pre-done, which are a lovely advert, just sort of saying, have you thought about what you might do in an emergency? So for individuals. There's also some business stuff, because they're thinking of businesses, and there's some, on their website again, there's 5-minute continuity ideas, so things that how would you, but your business code if it was flooded out and what have you. I mean, people don't think about it, and apparently it's some scary number of businesses go out of business in the next 2 years after a big catastrophe. Whereas if they'd thought about it beforehand, then perhaps they could not. Community groups. Most community groups don't really think about what might happen if there was an emergency, and that this emergency planning team will help them think about what they can do. So I thought if I kind of did a write-up, I couldn't do it for this grapevine, but for the next one, if that's all right. Dog ownership. Going on to dog fouling, which has been an issue, of course. They have a scheme now, and I've had the training, that was part of the day, where parish councillors, because we have been elected, are considered responsible members of the community. Therefore, if we've been trained, if we see a dog fouling and not being picked up after, on now, because I've had the training, my say-so, they will send out one of these fines if I'm prepared to give a statement. If I'm not prepared to give a statement because I'm worried it's a neighbour or I don't want to go into court or whatever, then they will send out a letter, which I've got a copy of somewhere, that basically saying, it's been alleged that this has happened, please be aware. It's all about sort of keeping an eye on things, and so we can get as many people as we want trained in this thing so that if we're worried about it, we can have people out on the streets sort of not quite patrolling. They don't want people patrolling. They don't want people challenging. They don't want, you know, they say don't talk to people. Don't confine, just spy. Don't take photos, but they would do it. So I've got lots of information about it. There's things like posters we can put up. Patrols are being undertaken. All sorts of things that we can put up. I've got a thing on dog control orders. I've got all the advisory stuff. So I'm now trained, whether I want to be or not. I don't know.
Could I ask Bethany, what was your training?
It wasn't Tom picking it up. So we can have this training. Now, that was, yes.
Can I just say, we know about this.
Yeah.
A guy called Mike Metcalf.
Yeah.
We're waiting for the training that Victoria's got involved with, and they said they'd get back to us with when there's a training course, so we can say to you during the corner.
Well, I've had that training.
Yeah, good.
So I've got lots and lots of stuff, so I've got loads of stuff about it all. It's here. If anybody wants to have a look, they're more than welcome to have a look. I think it's a delightful subject.
With John's permission, if I can interject there, did you find it actually quite enlightening as to how far you can go with it?
You can,
I did.
yeah.
When I had it.
And do's and don'ts, you know, just things that you should and shouldn't do. Don't tackle people, don't get involved. But I've got all the phone numbers and things like this.
I think what's important to come across is that the local authority are keen to actually get some fines on the door.
Yeah.
And they will publicise. And it is something that the local authority are actually proactively trying to encourage the community to get involved in, which is obviously why I sort of suggested to the parish council before that you put your name forward to actually do this. And if you haven't actually heard anything, you think it might be worth us actually giving them a bit of a nudge, Steve? Because I'm a bit
I've done that fairly recently, but I will nudge him again.
Yeah.
So if you don't tackle anybody, how do you know how do you get to know their name and address?
You don't. It's not your responsibility, that bit. We've actually got wardens within the East Riding that find all that bit out. So even to the point of finding somebody, a guy that's maybe, or a woman that's wearing a black duffel coat at 7 o'clock every morning, you don't know who the hell they are, they'll actually send a warden out and catch them at it. And then the warden will take over.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they always walk the dog at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning.
But often you'll be passing one of these here over the top of them. You'll be passing just the incident that they're doing. You won't be there watching and standing and looking for them, will you?
No, but we do get a lot of residents and parish councillors that actually say to me, I see so and so doing it 6 times a week, you know, and it's always on just before they take the kids to school or whatever it is. And those are the ones that we can. And to be honest, what the hope is that we actually get a couple of prosecutions and get those in the Google Times, etc. And then all of a sudden, everybody else might just start nipping back and being a little bit more cautious.
Because we used to have the stenciling on the pavements.
We can have that.
Are they out of date now? Or
I know you can have those.
They've got a few that they can give out.
That they're good to prevent it.
Yeah. They're looking at all sorts of things as well. They're looking at things like glow-in-the-dark paint, so that you can't use the excuse that you couldn't see the stencil because it glows in the dark. Yes.
I heard somewhere that they're DNA testing.
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't.
I don't think we can afford that.
And then if you see some dog food, you pick it up and you take it and test it, and then know whose dog it is.
That was a spoof.
You'll keep an eye on Tim, as you're passing your window, Tim, keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But if you see them going into a house, or if you see them getting into a car with the registration number or the house number, that you send one of these alleged letters. That you can't send a fine. You can only send a fine if you can sort of say, is this person? But it's only parish councillors because we're elected and so therefore considered to have a position of responsibility.
Without the training or
without the training.
Right.
Sorry, with training. So with training you can do it. Without training, on anybody's say so, anybody at all, they'll send out one of these alleged letters. I've got a copy of it. I've got a copy of the document, which is very exciting.
If we could do with an update in the next grapevine with this, and the thing about the night time, or, well, I suppose early morning, tea time, it's coming dark, and they do use it as an excuse, and it does
Well,
to get out and not pick it
Yeah,
up.
the other one that's frustrating is when they pick it up, put it in a bag, and then sort of back.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, it doesn't even drop down then.
And that counts as well, that's littering rather than dog fouling. But apparently the only excuse that there is for leaving dog poo on the ground is if you are registered blind and it's a guide dog. And even then there's registered blind people who somehow, they would, nobody can know how, they do pick up after themselves. But that's the only excuse you've got in law is if you're registered blind.
Have we had any complaints about dog fouling lately? I mean, I used to come
Ask the footballer.
occasionally to the parish council about fouling, but I haven't heard of any just lately.
The footballers are saying yes.
They'll also...
Well, you have to volunteer somebody for a footballer to be out there early in the morning.
Yeah.
We need to get trained up.
They'll also come and walk the village as
We need to
well.
move on.
Can I just say, there are certain people down on Beacon